I would love to see Canada be the 51st state.
We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody.
But if for some reason the federal government isn't prepared to make the changes, I have to say the Americans are still very interested.
Suggesting Alberta separatism could come within 2 months. The people, the government in Alberta are really fed up with being pushed around by Ottawa, and they're envisioning it's just going to get worse with Mark Carney.
Alberta just announced its intent to become the 51st U.S. state because clearly being Canada's cash cow wasn't humiliating enough. After years of carrying half the country's economy and getting nothing but carbon taxes in return, Alberta finally decided it's done playing nice.
And I've been clear from the beginning that we must take President Trump's statements on border security seriously and to take action immediately.
And now that the U.S. is offering actual respect and energy freedom, why wouldn't they consider a full-on upgrade?
People within Alberta, at least some of them, petitioning to become the 51st state.
1 in 5 Albertans now say they'd rather be Americans. Not someday, not maybe, right now. That's nearly 20% of the province openly supporting the idea of Alberta becoming the 51st state of the United States.
And it's based off of not only the way they vote, but also the amount of resources they have. They're number one in terms of the provinces, in terms of natural resources.
This isn't some fringe Facebook group ranting into the void. This is real, growing, and starting to make Canada's federal government sweat. And it's not just angry citizens whispering about it in town halls anymore. This talk has moved into the offices of actual power.
I can't, unfortunately, work with Canada. We're going to have to spend more time working with the U.S.
Premier Danielle Smith herself has acknowledged it. That's right. The leader of Alberta said flat out that the idea of joining the U.S. is on the table. That's a complete shift from how this conversation used to go. Before, politicians danced around it, dismissed it, or avoided it like a political third rail. Now, it's a valid option. It's being discussed. And more importantly, it's being taken seriously by the people who actually have the authority to act on it.
They've screwed it up from banning pipelines, putting in ridiculous environmental... they've screwed Alberta over.
And if you think this is just Alberta yelling into the wind, think again. Word out of Washington is that U.S. officials are already in the loop. Alberta delegates who recently visited the capital didn't get brushed off or laughed out of the room. They were told, bluntly, you guys would be welcome in.
Alberta is completely done. They're sick and tired of being treated like a disregarded, used, disgusting piece of tissue, and they are finished. Are they gonna separate from Canada?
Not, let's see what the legal framework is. Not, that's complicated. Just a straight up welcome. And that right there changes everything. Because now this isn't just about Alberta wanting out. It's about the United States potentially being open to letting them in.
Donald Trump now says they're best friends. He received a call and they're ready to make a deal.
That kind of political momentum doesn't happen in a vacuum. Alberta recently passed Bill 54, and this single piece of legislation changed the game overnight. Before this bill, if Albertans wanted to trigger a referendum on independence, they needed 600,000 signatures. That's a mountain. You'd need months of campaigning, massive resources, and an army of volunteers just to even reach the threshold.
And then she's going to put it on the citizens to decide what they want to do and where their future goes.
But Bill 54 brought that number crashing down to 177,000. Suddenly, this wasn't a long shot. It became achievable. With that drop, the idea of holding a province-wide vote on whether to leave Canada and potentially join the US moved from fantasy to planning stage. The rules were rewritten, and now the outcome is back in the hands of the people.
Donald Trump wants Alberta's oil. Yeah. So, and when he talks about the 51st state, He probably doesn't want Quebec and Ontario and the rest of Canada. He probably wants Alberta.
And that brings us to the Alberta Prosperity Project, the group that's not wasting any time. They've already launched the petition drives. They're not theorizing or drafting proposals. They're collecting signatures, holding town halls, and setting deadlines. Their target: summer 2025. That's less than a year from now. They're treating this like a real campaign, because it is one. A real political referendum is on the horizon, and if they hit the required number of signatures, the vote will happen.
And as this article describes, Alberta sets the groundwork for referendum day after the Liberals' election victory. Danielle Smith has been working on this for some time now. This was from a month ago.
And let me tell you, Alberta isn't just some cranky province throwing a tantrum. It's the economic lifeline of Canada, and Ottawa knows it. But instead of appreciation, what does Alberta get? A federal vacuum cleaner sucking up its cash and choking off its industry. Every single year, Alberta hands over $17 billion more to Ottawa than it gets back.
In general, I think Alberta would be a little bit more conservative, even worst case.
That's not speculation. That's from the province's own fiscal reports. Do the math, and that works out to over $3,000 per person, vanishing into a federal black hole. Now ask yourself, how long can a province keep footing the bill for a country that seems determined to shut it down?
I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I think it probably requires Trump to really stick to his guns on the tariffs.
While Alberta bleeds money, Quebec cashes in. Last year alone, Quebec received a whopping $13.2 billion in equalization payments. That's more than the budgets of multiple Atlantic provinces combined. And what's even more infuriating, Quebec continues to block Alberta's pipelines at every turn.
It could definitely work when you're talking about, I've said I don't think Trump should touch Canada. It doesn't make sense. But if you are talking about one province, it would be Alberta. That would be the one province based off of everything, based off of the amount of energy that gets generated.
It's not just political games. They've outright refused to allow energy infrastructure like Energy East to run through their territory, killing projects that would have transported Alberta oil to eastern refineries and international markets. They're happy to take the federal money built on Alberta's oil, but they won't lift a finger to help Alberta sell it.
Danielle Smith just slashed the number of signatures needed to trigger an Alberta independence referendum from 600,000 to 177,000.
That kind of double standard isn't just unfair, it's economic sabotage. The Keystone XL pipeline, the Northern Gateway, and the Energy East pipeline were all shut down or canceled, either directly or indirectly, due to federal interference or Quebec opposition. Together, those canceled projects represent over $55 billion in lost oil export potential, according to Canadian Energy Centre estimates. That's not just money that could have gone to Alberta's economy. That's jobs, royalties, private investment, and export revenue that got torched while Ottawa smiled for the cameras.
Alberta is officially done with Ottawa.
The pipeline story isn't about technical issues or environmental safety. It's about politics. And at the center of it all is Bill C-69, also known in Alberta as the No More Pipelines Bill. This federal legislation, passed in 2019, restructured the environmental assessment process for major projects and handed more decision-making power to Ottawa. Under this bill, even if a pipeline project is deemed economically sound and environmentally safe, the federal government can still shut it down based on undefined public interest.
Canada, if Mark Carney's Liberals win this election. You've said that you won't lead a referendum, but where do you stand on this? Do you want Alberta to leave Canada?
Well, I want Canada to work. I want Canada to be able to meet its potential.
And that's not all. Add in federal carbon taxes, which disproportionately impact Alberta's energy-heavy economy. According to Alberta government data, The carbon tax will cost Albertans over $2.6 billion by 2026. And where does that money go? Mostly to the federal treasury, while Ottawa hands out rebates that don't come close to covering the losses from stalled development and rising fuel prices. It's a tax dressed up as climate justice. But in Alberta, it feels like straight-up economic punishment. And despite all this, Alberta still holds up the country. It's not just oil, it's trade. According to data from Statistics Canada, Alberta now trades more with the United States than it does with every other Canadian province combined. We're talking $100 billion plus annually in cross-border trade, compared to only $60 billion with the rest of Canada. That means Alberta is already economically integrated